There are several arguments to this concept of subsidy. Those who say, look, the amount of people that is benefiting from this subsidy payment, we've spent 4 trillion now, because now there is another regime since the Petroleum Industry Act was put in place, which takes away government's role or major role in the NNPC, which makes NNPC a private interest. Now, should Nigeria continue to be, the nation continue to pay for subsidy, which you say is just a little portion of the country that is benefiting from it, 4 trillion, especially if you look at out of 17 trillion naira, we are paying for that amount of money into subsidy. Some people will argue that it is needed. Politically speaking, you may not be able to do that right now. Let's get some insight into all of this perspective. There are different debates over this matter, but I'm not the expert here. Let's bring the expert. I'm being joined tonight by Professor Kingsley Moghalu, a political economist, a lawyer, former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, 2023 presidential aspirant of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Professor Moghalu was a presidential candidate in the 2019 elections. Thank you so much, Prof. He joins us virtually. Let's begin by getting your view on this issue of subsidy. When the matter came up yesterday on the floor of the National Assembly, the debate also came about the issue of subsidy. Now, considering our present budget, can we afford it? Can we remove it? Can we stop paying it? It's a quagmire, isn't it? Economic quagmire that this present government may have found itself. But if you were in the shoes of the present government, would you have done differently? Would you have done differently? Would you have done differently?
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. The matter of subsidy is a very difficult one. It's one of the things that shows the problems of pretending to be a welfare state when we really don't have economic capacity and when we are not generating wealth internally. So in fact, you find now that the government is borrowing a lot. You asked whether the subsidy can be removed. It should be removed. It may not be possible to remove it immediately. It requires proper planning, and I think that 4 trillion naira going to petroleum subsidy is 4 trillion naira that should better be invested in education, in healthcare, and in developing a public transportation system that could be subsidized for poorer people. And the subsidy that public transport system would require would be a fraction of what we spend on petroleum subsidy. If you spent 1 trillion naira, you don't even have to do that. If you spend 500 billion naira, you could have a very effective public transportation system across this whole country. And the people, therefore, who can afford petrol, if you remove the subsidy, the middle class, the wealthy people, and they can carry on. And poor people who cannot afford the commercial price of petrol, which is being subsidized today, can use public transport to move around. That's what we should be going for. But that's not where we are at this point. So I think the subsidy is really like a bone in our neck or a bone in our throat. And, it's as if, do you swallow it? Do you bring it out by force? It's a very difficult problem. But as to whether it should continue, let me tell you, the answer is no. But you cannot remove it precipitately. There should be a proper plan. There must be investments in public transportation before you can remove petroleum subsidy. Because what happens now is that with the petroleum subsidy, the price of petrol in Nigeria is ridiculously cheap compared to West African countries. And so you find a lot of smuggling of petrol going on. I want you to note that the only hydrocarbon product that is subsidized now in Nigeria is premium motor spirit, PMS. That is what we call petrol. Diesel, kerosene, all those other things are selling at commercial prices. So there is nothing impossible about removing the petroleum subsidy, although some people may want to make it look as if it is an entitlement we have because we produce petrol. Why do we export petrol, but we import refined petroleum into the country? That's just what is the problem. We need to get a refinery in this country functioning at capacity. That's likely to be the Dangote refinery. The state refineries on which we've spent so many millions, in terms of repairing them. I think in 2021, the NNPC spent 100 billion naira on refinery repairs. And in 2020, we spent $43 billion on, refined petroleum products importation. This is not sustainable. So we have to get our refineries working. That's very important. And one of the reasons the state refineries have collapsed, despite having 445,000 million barrels per day ability, is just because of the inefficiency and the incompetence of economic management in the Nigerian state. That's what's happening. So there are several layers of problems. But I think the first is to say, what do we do for the poor people if we remove petroleum subsidy? How can we plan for that to make sure that the impact of the removal and subsidy on the poor is not significant? That's the first place to start. Once we make those investments, and it could take a couple of years or so, then you go ahead to remove the subsidy. Because what happens is that when you leave these kinds of things to the market, eventually they'll find their proper level. That's what happened with GSM. At the beginning of the deregulation of the telecommunications space, it was very expensive. Today you can get a SIM card for nothing.
There are a few things that is wrong with the economy as we speak. And perhaps, I'm going to ask you this question because I know you have interest in sitting on the president's seat come 2023. So, and if you want that kind of position, you perhaps may be figuring out how to solve some of Nigeria's problems. You saw what happened in terms of inflation, the CPI latest report, and all of that. And the state of things generally, economically speaking, you know how much of time Nigerians queued at the filling station. You know how much the price of diesel stands right now. The issue of inflation, the exchange rate, and a whole lot of that. Should you be president, if you were elected president, do you have a solution to our economic woes?
Yes, I think I do. First of all, that solution will not come only from me because no one does it all. I think I would certainly work with a dream team of economic experts, to help me manage the economy, and combined with my own knowledge and experience, combining that knowledge and experience with people who might have superior knowledge, we will be able to do quite well in managing the economy. Let me tell you the secret. You see, for you to manage an economy such as Nigeria, you have to begin from a philosophical foundation. Are we a capitalist country? If we are, what is the balance between the state and the market? Because if you distort that balance, you have inefficiencies, such as we have with the petroleum situation today in Nigeria, such as we have with the foreign exchange situation in Nigeria. When you interfere with the free market, you create black markets. That's what happens. So the first place to begin is this. What type of capitalism are we practicing in Nigeria? Is it welfare capitalism? Is it entrepreneurial capitalism? Is it state capitalism? Is it crony capitalism? There are different types of capitalism. And if you want to be a capitalist state, what I recommend for Nigeria is a combination of entrepreneurial capitalism and welfare capitalism. But you must first create the wealth before you can take care of the poor and the aged, the old people whose pensions and social security is not assured. My government, a government that I lead, would make sure that people who have worked for many years of their life for Nigeria do not spend their old age in regret. But you must do some things to make sure that that situation is what actually exists. Let me explain. You can't be capitalist without three things successfully. You cannot be a successful capitalist economy without three things. One, property rights. Two, innovation. Three, access to capital. These are the first three things you must secure. What do I mean by property rights? The state owns all the land. Because the state owns all the land, the potential wealth that can be created from land and property as a factor of production is just not there. You see, there was a reason for the Land Use Act when it was passed, but I think it has outlived its usefulness. The second is innovation. Every economy that is prosperous in the world is based on people innovating, inventing things, commercializing the things they invent, and putting them into the market. And this process is going on every day.
So, Prof, apologies if I cut into your, inflation rate has hit 15.92%. Prices of gas has risen. Now, let me ask you these quick questions. First and foremost, is there anything you think that this government is doing wrongly that is getting us to this point?
Yes, I have been very honest as a citizen in saying that I do not think that the management of Nigeria's economy has been as competent as it ought to be. There is too much government in the Nigerian economy, and that is one of the things that is creating economic problems for Nigeria. The Nigerian government is too involved in the marketplace, and it creates distortions. For example, if you are not a manufacturing economy exporting value-added goods, but you rely on one product, which is crude oil, for your foreign exchange earnings, you are bound to have problems. So we must go back to this issue of what do we do to diversify the economy so that we export value-added products, not exporting raw agricultural products. No, that's not what I mean. When I talk about diversification, I mean, forex diversification. What earns foreign exchange for Nigeria? So this is one area where I think we have not done very well. The management of Nigeria's forex policy, I had problems with it. I think the attempt to control the price of forex has backfired, and the naira just keeps heading towards 1,000 naira a dollar, despite every effort of the central bank. It's because we're not getting the philosophical fundamentals right. You talk about inflation. Inflation, when we left the central bank in 2014, where I was deputy governor and a member of the Monetary Policy Committee, we had brought inflation down from 13-14% down to 8%. How did we do it? We did it with controlling the money supply, with jacking up interest rates. Yes, you must. But some people will come back and tell you that if the interest rates are high, people will not have access to credit. How many people are getting access to credit in Nigeria today? Very few. And so the central bank is being turned into a commercial bank so that people can get low interest loans. So these are some of the fundamentals that are not...
Another question perhaps that I'd like you to help look at is the fact that you've talked about subsidy. Those who say, look, in this political season, it might be too difficult to handle it. Now we have it. But going into the new year also, a new government might be coming into, it gets about the mid of the next year. But we are faced with another reality, that will the government remove it or not? What is a perfect solution for this issue of subsidy? There are those who believe that there are hands of those who are manipulating the system in this issue of subsidy, and they are gaining and benefiting from the woes and the pains of Nigerians. What would you do if you have the opportunity to take action or make a solution in that respect?
Well, thank you, because I certainly hope that I will be the next president of Nigeria. And therefore, I'm not in the business of having pity on myself, even though that I know I would, in that scenario, inherit a very, very depressed economy, including this problem of subsidy. So the matter of subsidy, this government has moved it forward. I can understand they're not wanting to take the political risk at this time. But I think that very early in the life of any administration, that administration must have an honest dialogue with Nigerians. Show Nigerians the way that we want to go concerning the petroleum subsidy. We will educate Nigerians about the economics of the subsidy, why it cannot be sustained over the long haul. We will not necessarily remove it immediately we come in, but we will begin to implement some of these investments that I talked to you about the public transportation system and how that can shield poor people when you eventually remove the subsidy. That's the job for the first year or two. But eventually, the subsidy must go. It's not sustainable. And by then, of course, Dangote refinery, hopefully, should be on stream sometime in 2023. So it's a very difficult issue, but somebody has to grapple with it with courage, with knowledge, and with competence and transparency. You see, there's a lot of corruption in the subsidy scheme. We all know that. Many people have called it, a scheme for sleaze. There's a lot of fraud. But that's because the subsidy exists in the first place. If it was just the market price determining the price of fuel, there's no loophole for fraud. You see what I'm saying? How much fraud is happening in the telecommunications industry? No, you just go and buy your phone or you buy your SIM card.
All right, Prof. We're due for a break in just about a minute. But just quickly, if you can tell us, there's a lot of oil theft going on in the country as we speak. Yes. Perhaps more than we've seen in a long time. The magnitude of the oil theft going on in the country right now. How do we stop that kind of scenario?
It's a security problem. And Nigeria's security is heavily challenged on all fronts, whether it is the security of oil production and transportation, or the security of lives and property in terms of bandits and terrorists. Our security is challenged all around. It's a security problem. And it's also a problem of governance. You see, corruption walks on four legs in Nigeria now. It's the corruption industrial complex. But there is no accountability for corruption in Nigeria. And so there is an incentive for it to continue to grow ever more serious. So this is what is happening. It's a security problem, period. And it's a governance issue as well.
All right. We'll get into a few of those issues, but I was going to ask you, if you become Nigeria's president, would you cut down on the presidential fleet? One. Would you stop? Would you cut down on the cars that you have on your entourage? Would you do that? And how will you cut cost of governance also?
Yes, absolutely. We would cut all these things that are not necessary, but without compromising the security of the president or the security of the state. Remember what killed Murtala Mohammed? We don't want that. But at the same time, we will not encourage all these long convoys and wasteful use of state resources. I will not encourage that at all. I will be very, very determined about cutting the cost of governance. And the first place to start is in political appointees. They are a parasite on the system. You cannot have personal assistants to special assistants and special assistants to senior special assistants. This is just nonsense. And it has to stop. It takes political will, which I have.
You said you're sure that you're going to be the next president of Nigeria. What do you mean by that? And what gives you this confidence?
No, I said I certainly hope that I will be the next president of Nigeria. I'm not God and I don't see tomorrow. But I do hope to and plan to become the next president. There's a number of ways that we are going to do it. It's not just me, but there is a whole movement of Nigerians. Today, we received a group now known as the Moghalu State of Mind. Previously, they were called the Atiku State of Mind. They were a support group of the former vice president, but today they decamped and had an event where they endorsed me for the presidency of Nigeria in 2023. And there are many such groups and structures across the whole country that are approaching me and pledging their support because they feel that the time has come for a generational paradigm shift from the past of our traditional politicians, which has brought us to a very difficult place. And moving forward, they want a younger, more modern, economically sound, intellectually sound president. Somebody who understands that the presidency is a job. It's not just a political promotion. It's a job. And if you were hiring for your business, you should not hire somebody who does not have the job requirements. What are the job requirements of the president? 4 things, 4 core functions. 1, nation building. 2, national security. 3, the national economy. 4, foreign affairs. many of these people realize that of all the people who are aspiring to be president today, I am far better prepared on these four things by virtue of my career, a long and distinguished career of achievement in the United Nations at the global level, in terms of nation building in countries like Croatia, in the former Yugoslavia, Rwanda, and so on, Cambodia. My involvement in international security operations, cross-border counterterrorism operations, and international peacekeeping. My experience in economic management at a leadership level in the central bank. My track record as a United Nations diplomat, with knowledge and experience in traditional diplomacy. These are the functions of the president. It's not just politics. After the election, the president must govern.
Professor Moghalu, I'd like to speak with you as a political journalist now, that beyond the capacity and beyond the profile of someone who wants to be a president comes the issue of the political platform in which you are vying on, the ADC.
Absolutely.
Does your party has the national outlook and the wherewithal to be able, and does it have a history of winning a national election of this nature that can galvanize or give you that strength going into this election, should you even get a ticket of your party?
Yes. First of all, in history, there's always a first time. History is always made. So 2023 is going to be a historic year for Nigeria. In the past, we have always placed too much emphasis on political parties without looking at the capacity of individuals. So this 2023 election, I suspect it's going to connect capacity with politics. Yes, politics is real. It's local. We must get elected in order to be able to bring what we have for Nigerians. But I'm telling you that we are building a massive structure across the country. Grassroots structure. This is one of the lessons I learned from 2019. Don't forget I was a presidential candidate in 2019. And I learned that everybody in Nigeria could like you, but if you don't have a proper structure, you're not likely to win. So in 2023, structures are gravitating towards someone like myself, in whom people have seen that I can be a bridge between Nigeria's past and its future. The young people of Nigeria are Nigeria's wealth and Nigeria's future. And we need a generational shift to somebody with a track record, such as I have, somebody with a vision, somebody with a courage, such as I have shown. If I wasn't courageous, I would not have gone about politics the way I have gone about it. So, this is, people are waking up in Nigeria today. And therefore, it's human beings that are the structure. It's human beings that will help us drive to victory. And many of those people are gravitating towards me quietly. We're not making too much noise. You will notice that many other actors have been in the news of late, but I'm just smiling because I believe in Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy. Muhammad Ali, the great boxer in those days, he would hang back on the rope and people would punch themselves tired. And then he will come out with a massive left hook and deliver it to you and you're on the canvas. So in 2023, I can tell you it's going to be a rope-a-dope. It will be a thriller in Manila, a rumble in the jungle, like Ali would say.
I just love my job. Just like you describing it as a boxing bout, I see myself as that reporter standing and watching and taking note of those jabs and those punches, and how I'm going to report it. I'm going to be having a nice time reporting those interesting scenarios that you're talking about tonight. But Professor Kingsley Moghalu, it's a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you so much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you, Shago. Always a pleasure.